here's what's going to happen in the next 10 years. And first I'm going to tell you what I think is going to happen, and then I'm also going to give you some of the things that I think that you can do to minimize the risk of you being fucked over by these global events that are going on. Now, the first thing that you need to remember is there's only one hegemon in the world, and that's United States of America. And they spend last 20 to 30 years creating a world in which they would stay the hegemon. They created the rules and enforced them with a lot of vigor and force. But in the next 10 years, what we're going to be increasingly feeling is the American midlife crisis, their crisis of identity. Because for some reason, the sense that the world is going to be a better place and my life is going to be better has totally disintegrated in America. People in America are exhausted, angry, confused, and they don't believe the old sayings of America is number one and we're already great. They lost faith in these sweet words. And what they want is a radical change. But they're going to run into trouble because they don't know what shape this change is supposed to get. They don't realize that feeling that they have is much deeper. And so right now in the world you have a country who's run amok, that is going through a midlife crisis like a madman, trying to find their sense in the world, trying to find their place in the world, trying to grab hold of anything that has meaning to them. And that's a problem because they're the hegemon, they're the strongest country in the world, they have the largest military, and they're just going wild and going crazy. So in the next 10 years, what we're going to see is Americans grappling with this sense of belonging, not knowing what they actually want to do. And it's going to be a wild ride because they can basically do anything. Right now they're leaning towards fascism and leaning towards the rule of strongman, but this is a false promise because the strongman is not gonna, in the long term, help them with their inner sense of being lost and being helpless. This is something that needs to be healed systematically, and a strong character, a strong man, a dictator is not going to do it for them. What the dictator is going to do is consolidate power around himself, get mad, and start repressing people, finding scapegoats. And when he runs out of scapegoats, he's going to turn that hatred and anger inward. It's going to turn it into the American population. So, number one thing that's going to happen in the world is a superpower being totally lost in the world and feeling helpless, which is not a good thing, because the entire order that we have now is being built or was built by them, and if you take that away, there's going to be a lot of chaos. A lot of bad actors are going to try to fit into that vacuum created by Americans withdrawing from every type of organization and withdrawing from world affairs. So if you live somewhere that you care about democracy, I advise you to get active. I'm going to talk about it at the end, but I advise you to get real with yourself and find a support system, or if you don't have a support system, build one. It's going to be necessary in the coming years. And the second thing I want to talk about is, in the next 10 years, the thing that you're going to hear more and more is going to be AI. And I know because I spent the last 6 years trying to get into that industry. And I finally made it. I became an AI engineer in a company, and let me put it this way: everybody in the AI space right now is working on automating human decision making, automating human beings to such a degree that human cognitive labor will no longer be needed. There will only be a computer system that's going to replace these people. So my estimation is that in 5 years we're going to start seeing huge waves of layoffs due to artificial intelligence replacing people fully. Because what we're working on now is called an agentic system. It's a system that has some decision-making capabilities that allow it to run programs, run functions automatically. It can automatically select what kind of function to run, what kind of tool to select and run it. So for example, let's say if you're working somewhere as an accountant and you have to open an Excel sheet, do a spreadsheet, do some calculations in it, and then put it somewhere else. In the past, it was difficult to automate because you had to have some system that would autonomously decide if that system needs to be run, if that Excel sheet needs to be opened, if the spreadsheet has to be run. But now we overcame that hurdle, and now it is possible for the computer system, for the AI, to select autonomously if it wants to run these things. And if it's satisfied with the output, there's guardrails, validation, going back and forth between what the computer creates and what it thinks that it's suitable to put into production, and it bounces back and forth like this all the time. So the key takeaway from all this is, I think the wave of replacing human beings, of cognitive work, is going in 5 years. Now you can be lucky and be unaffected by this, but only if your cognitive work that you do day to day is very original. You have to pull unexpected sources and create connections between things that are usually very difficult to see for normal human beings. So what does that mean? Only the top most intelligent people who are also working to create the most creative things will be spared these things. And so if you're somebody who's already struggling in a society, living paycheck to paycheck, doing some white collar, middle of the road job, you're in danger. And you're going to be increasingly in danger year after year until, I think, after those 10 years, after a decade from now, there's not going to be a place for you anymore. There just isn't. If you were used to do something the same way for last 10 years or 15 years, whatever, even 5 years, then that is over for you, because all of these AI companies are gunning for you. This year is going to be, you're going to see an extreme amount of startup companies trying to automate almost every aspect of human life with these agents, AI agents. Not all of them are going to succeed, of course, but what it's going to do is push the technology even further. Like, this is not something that you can stop. This is what you need to understand. This is not something that you can stop and say, I'm just going to ignore it, unless you have a fuck you money. So this comes down to the other thing that I wanted to talk about, and that is to give you my opinion of what you should do in those 10 years from now. And number one, I think, is to take care of your health. I stress it always, I stress it all the time that your mental and physical well-being is paramount. You need to take care of yourself physically and mentally. If you're already struggling with being overweight or have some medical issues, you gotta straighten it out, because you're gonna need all the strength that you can get in the next 5 to 10 years. You need to be on your A game. You need to have mental clarity in your head of what you want to achieve, and you need to start building it ASAP, because in some sense it's already too late. It is already too late. But the best time to start was yesterday. The second best time to start is today. So number one, you need to be on your A game, and that necessitates that you take care of your health. You exercise, you sleep well, you eat well. This is something that is in your control. It's gonna be hard, especially for people who are working class, who are already struggling. It is gonna be extremely hard for you, because the system that you live in is extremely harsh for you. You don't have as much free time as somebody who's middle class, not to mention upper class. But it is doable, but it's not going to be easy. Now the second thing I want you to do is, I want you to start saving money. And every bit of money that you save right now is going to be useful in those 10 years, because the worst case scenario that can happen to you is that in those 10 years you wake up and you are still a wage slave. You are still somebody who has to exchange time for money, without any savings, without any investments, without any cushion that would lower the blow. Because in those 10 years the world is going to change so much and so radically that you will definitely need to have something saved. And not only that, you will also need to have a safe space for you. You will need to have a support network. So start saving the money now and spend it on buying a piece of land, a fertile piece of land that's big enough for you to sustain you, your family, and be secure somewhere close to a mid-sized town. Not a city, but a town. Now this is very important. You need to be on a safe location with enough resources to grow food, to have a space to build a workshop, whatever, get skills, and be close enough to civilization to keep a support network of friends, of specialists like doctors, engineers, stuff like that. So don't get crazy and move somewhere in a total nowhere, because it's gonna be harder for you unless you're one of those types that can survive in the wilderness by themselves. But save the money and use it to buy a piece of land that will be yours, because I think the property rights are gonna be the last thing that they're gonna touch. And the third thing that I wanted to say is, spend your time building your support network. Spend your time building relationships and connections with people who can help and who see the world in the same way as you do. Now, if you don't know how to see the world, then spend the time thinking about what you want to achieve in life, who you want to be, and then going for it. Think about things that make you happy, that give you satisfaction, and then build your worldview around those things. And the support network should be such that it helps you maintain this support and helps you maintain being happy. This whole fucking shebang, this whole life nonsense is about being content and have some sort of transcendence through work, friends, memories, philosophy, things like that. And the rest is just noise. So your ultimate goal should be to live a fulfilling life. This should be your number one goal. All these problems that I mentioned that are happening in the world are just a hindrance they're just something that's being an obstacle in front of you for living a fulfilling life. And so your goal should be to minimize the risk that these things are going to pose for you and overcome them. And I have every faith that you can do it, because the human spirit just cannot be broken so easily. But if you are somebody who's struggling, then tap into, here's a trick, here's a little tip for you, here's a little trick for you. If you're somebody who's already struggling and feeling like shit, then tap into your anger. Tap into that voice in your head that says, I'm not going to be messed with. And turn that anger into action. Turn it into a positive action to build things. This is what's necessary. All right? Take care, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.